Okay, great.
Hey, Will. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Hold on. There, the gavel is banged. I want to welcome everybody. It's 10:03. I want to welcome everybody to the January 17th meeting of the full commission. Mr. Adams, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro.
Here.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Dorner.
Here.
Commissioner Giraldo. You're on mute, Commissioner.
Good morning. I'm here. I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
Commissioner Washington.
Present.
From Montgomery, Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Bartley.
Thumbs up.
Thank you. Commissioner Hedrick.
Here.
Commissioner Linden.
Here.
Is Commissioner Pedoim in? Did not see her.
She's not here today.
She's
Thank
absent.
you. All right. 9 present. We have quorum.
Thank you. I would look for a motion in one motion to both approve the commission agenda and approve the commission minutes from December 20th, 2023 open session. Is there a motion?
I have a motion to approve the commission agenda and the approval of the commission minutes for December 20th, 2023.
Seconded.
We've got a motion by Vice Chair Harris. I didn't see who did the second. Was that Commissioner Hedrick?
Commissioner Hedrick, sorry. Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Discussion? No discussion. Mr. Adams, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Bartley.
Aye.
Commissioner Hedrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Linden.
Aye.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Under general announcements, a few general announcements that you see listed on our agenda. Just want to remind folks that the financial disclosure filing requirements April 30th are due, so please be attentive to that. Also, under under broadly defined general announcements, I want to do a few quick introductions and welcomes for folks. I'll do one and then turn to Vice Chair Harris, who may have a few as well. We have our new planning director. If Lakeisha Hull is on the line, if you could show your face. And I wanted to welcome her and introduce her to everybody. She is in her second and a half week, I think we have, as the planning director for Prince George's County. We're very excited to have her. She's come up from Florida, which I don't know if that's such a bright decision given the weather. But she's already hit the ground running, and we're excited to be working with you, Lakeisha. I just wanted to introduce you to the team of the world, and if you want to say a quick word or two, that would be great.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Lakeisha Hall, the planning director. Super happy to be here. Thank you so much for extending a nice welcome. I've been here actually a week and a half, but really, really excited, hitting the ground running. I'm in the office today with the team. We're going to do a meet and greet soon, and so looking forward to meet everyone and to get going in 2024. I have 20 years of experience in the planning field, and so I'm looking forward to also apply some of the best practices here as well. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair?
Happy New Year to everyone, and good morning. I'd also like to extend a welcome to Montgomery County's new Parks Director, Mitty Figueredo. Mitty has been with us for about 10 years, and she formerly was a Deputy Director in the Parks Department. And as you all know, Mike Riley, our former director, retired December 31st after 38 wonderful years with the commission, and we're so delighted and happy that he has spent so many great years with us and built the park system to be one of the best in the country, and we're so happy to have Mitty. And Mitty, if you'd like to say a couple of words, you're more than welcome to. I thought I saw her there, but we'll keep going. And then also, you met Jason Sartori last month, who's our new planning director, and we're so happy to to have Jason with us, and so now we're fully staffed, and we're looking forward to a wonderful 2024.
Thank you, sir. Lots of some new faces, a number of new roles, and we're happy to see you. So let's move on to our action presentation items. We'll start with item 4A. This is an amendment to rules of procedure for rotation of commission chair. We have a recommendation from staff on this. In short, what we're looking at doing is changing the rules to have me stay as chair through July, and then the rotation we would then take up a vote for a new chair in July. Mr. Vice Chair, it's okay with you?
Yes, unless there were any other comments. There was a couple of other minor changes in the board package to that item, but that is essentially what the recommendation is.
So what's before us is changing the rules of procedure. The actual vote for new chair would not happen until July, because effectively what this would do is keep me in the role through July, but there's no other action we need to take beyond amending the rules of procedure.
Chair, I believe that there are some just very few technical amendments, and I think Mr. Beckham is online here to just mention that really quickly.
Okay, Mr. Beckham, take it away.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. And as you shared, Chair Shapiro, the main change to the rules of procedure is to have the change in chair change from the calendar year to fiscal year. In the memo, as you see on the screen share, there are additional other few minor amendments to mention, for example, that meetings may occur virtually, that a person may attend in person or via telephone, that a quorum may be met either in person or virtually. So these changes are in the packet on Circle page 7. And I also want to mention that subsequent to the packet going out, Secretary Treasurer Cohen suggested a few non-substantive technical changes that we would also like to make. For example, making the distinction between commissioner and planning board member distinct. Throughout the rules of procedure, there's a couple instances where commissioner is referred to as member. So we would like to also make those technical changes that Secretary Treasurer is recommending.
Okay. Any objection, commissioners?
I don't have an objection, just if I could understand, maybe a statement as to the reason for the change or those amendments.
For the rotation or for the commission planning board?
No,
member?
not for the rotation. The rotation I understand, but for the between commission member and planning board.
Mr.
member.
Beckham?
Yes, and the reason is just for clarity that commissioners, as opposed to referring to them as members of the commission, for clarity, it's easier to say or better to say those are commissioners. Also, mentioning that that voting may be done either by telephone or in person. These are just changes to make the rules of procedure more technically accurate, I would say.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? If there's no other questions, commissioners, I would look for a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
I've got Commissioner Giraldo for a motion. I think that was Commissioner Washington for the second. Discussion on the motion? No discussion. Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington,
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bartley, We have a
Don't
vote
see
from
it.
Bartley?
Oh, I got a thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hedrick,
Aye.
Commissioner Linden,
Aye.
thank you, 9-0.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Next, we have item 4B on our agenda, amendments to Practice 224, Section I, G, post-employment restrictions. We have Ms. Harvin, Mr. Beckham on the line. Mr. Beckham, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. This item is on Circle page 23, item 4B. At the November commission meeting, commissioners asked us to take a look at the post-employment restrictions in our code of ethics that the commission approved. Now, there were three things that we were asked to look at. We were asked to look at making sure that there was no prohibition on former employees representing or assisting a state or local government entity. We were also asked to look at the definition of significant participation. What the rule is that if a former employee significantly participates in a particular matter as a commission employee, they are later then prohibited from assisting a third party on that same particular matter. General Counsel Deborah Borden mentioned that this is kind of like switching teams, and the idea is that we want to prevent people from leaving the commission, taking insider knowledge, and then using that for a third party to benefit. And so part of that definition of significant participation means things like making recommendations or rendering advice. And then last, we were asked to look at more lenient restrictions for employees who did not have decision-making authority. And we were also asked to look at how the federal government handles these restrictions for post-employment. In doing our research, what we found is that we could be more clear in saying that a former employee could assist or represent a governmental entity after commission employment, as long as it doesn't create or provide an actual or perceived conflict of interest. And so the state allows this, and we are able as an agency to do that as well, to allow former employees to represent or assist a governmental entity. So the second issue on significant participation, we were asked to, again, look at that definition to see, can we change it to not mean making recommendations, to something more along the lines of making a decision. And what we found is that the State Ethics Commission actually gives us that definition of significant participation. And so we need to follow the definition. And that does include things like making recommendations or rendering advice. And then the last request to make more lenient restrictions on former employees without decision-making authority. Again, if the employee significantly participated by making a recommendation and not making a decision, they still would have that indefinite prohibition on assisting or representing a third party before the commission. The federal government does have a separate rule where if an employee did not significantly participate in a matter, but rather had official oversight of that matter, the federal government provides a 2-year ban on that former employee assisting or representing another party before the federal government. The agency doesn't need to go beyond the requirement of the public ethics law, which requires us to have this lifetime ban on significantly participating on matters and then representing another party. We don't need to have a 2-year ban on an employee not significantly participating, but rather having official oversight of that matter, like the federal government. So we are in line with the public ethics law, and we would ask the commission to approve the minor changes that we have included in the packet.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? I know that Commissioner Joyner, you had some questions about this. There may have been one or two other commissioners as well. Are we okay with this item? Changes that have been made?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with council, and I'm fine with the changes that are in the packet. I think it might be a little bit helpful if you would skip forward to page to where it's actually at.
Okay.
So people can see the actual language that's actually in the policy, not just like the analysis of it on page, I think it's regular page 21 is where it's at.
Yes.
Yeah, right there.
So circle page 47. Let me make it large.
Yeah, and I mainly wanted to get number 2 in there. So with that insertion, I think I'm a bit more comfortable with that.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. Other Commissioners' questions, comments, reactions? All okay?
Yeah, I like the specificity where it says if the matter involves the commission and former employee significantly participated in the matter as a commission employee, because just the idea that you could never use your experience to better yourselves, especially when some of our terms on the board are limited, and to further impede you from earning an income after your board tenure is very problematic with me, but I understand that no one should participate in a matter after their board service wherein they had a decision. So this specificity fits, and without it, I think it'd be very problematic. So thank you for amending it.
Excellent. Other questions? We got another hand raise. Yep.
Oh, this is Commissioner Hedrick. Generally speaking, I don't love the idea of loosening or weakening any ethics policy we have. I think this in particular is fine, because I think it still addresses the things. It's like I in the future would think that things like rendering of advice and things like that are something we should have continue to have ethics rules around, and not try to loosen up too much.
Okay, understood. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, Commissioners, we have recommendations from staff on these amendments, and I would look for a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second, Commissioner Washington.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Giraldo, a second by Commissioner Washington. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
Aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Bartley.
Aye.
Commissioner Hedrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Linden.
Aye.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item 4C. This is Resolution 24-01, minor amendment to the 2014 approved Southern Green Line Station Area Sector Plan. Is there anything to present on this item? Nothing to present. I'd look for a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
I'll second. Hedrick.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Giraldo, a second by Commissioner Hedrick. Discussion? No discussion. Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
But aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
Vote aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Bartley.
Aye.
Commissioner Hedrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Linden.
Aye.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, item 4D on our agenda, Resolution 24-02, minor amendment to the 2009 approved countywide master plan of transportation and 2013 approved subregion 6 master plan. Anything to present on this item? Nothing to present. Any questions or comments, Commissioners? If not, I would look for a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Giraldo, a second by Commissioner Bailey. Discussion? No discussion. Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey.
Vote aye.
Commissioner Dorner.
Aye.
Commissioner Giraldo.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington.
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris.
Aye.
Commissioner Bartley.
Aye.
Commissioner Hedrick.
Aye.
Commissioner Linden.
Aye.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Next item, we have Resolution 24-03, approval of Fairland and Briggs Cheney Master Plan. We do have a brief presentation on this item. We'll turn to staff. If you could introduce yourself for the record and take it away.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. For the record, Patrick Butler, I'm the Up County Division Chief. And I have with me Clark Larson, the lead planner for Fairland and Briggs Cheney. I also want to thank Don Ziegler, the Master Plan Supervisor for Up County, and several other of our staff who have helped along the way. So with that, I'll keep my introductions brief and turn it over to Clark. We're very excited to be presenting you this plan for adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Hello, Chair Shapiro and Commissioners. I'm also happy to be bringing this resolution of adoption to you today. This is the culmination of about a 2-year process to update a portion of the Fairland Master Plan in our county's, Montgomery County's east side. It runs along US 29. It's a critical area for our community to bring more attention to investments and the potential for new redevelopment along this US 29 corridor. Building on the BRT successes that we have on US 29 and focusing on activity centers, this master plan is the first that is coming to you on the heels of Montgomery County's general plan update, the Thrive 2050. So we incorporated many of those ideas for incorporating activity centers, walkable areas for neighborhoods to access, and providing more housing options, better transit and bike and pedestrian services. We also engaged in a number of innovative community outreach engagement potential opportunities, especially during the COVID pandemic. And so we're happy about being out in the community and engaging with the community and bringing those ideas into the plan as much as possible. Your packet has the background on the changes that the Montgomery County Council made to the Planning Board's draft, although they are quite minor. I think it was a very well-received plan. And so what you see before you is, I think, a very positive foundation for this portion of East Montgomery County. And we urge you to consider adoption of it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, questions on this resolution that's before us and the excellent work that has gone into it? Any questions or comments? I actually had one question. You mentioned specifically that there were some innovative engagement tools that you were using, Connected COVID. I'm just curious, just a minute or so on anything that you've done that's sort of different, creative, that'd be helpful for us to hear.
Yeah, sure. One, we partnered with an organization called Everyday Canvassing. Again, kicked off the initial outreach in the community. And so we were canvassing doors, having volunteers, actually trying to meet people where they are, not having them come to us. We really went through the neighborhood. Also did that not only for residences, but businesses as well, to try to understand their needs, what was lacking, what infrastructure, what network that we could better put in place through this master plan effort from a land use and connectivity standpoint. So we did that. With that data, we're able to really make a strong connection, not just qualitatively, but quantitatively, to the recommendations within the plan. So obviously held several meetings out in the community, but really made an emphasis, even in the throes of the pandemic, to really meet the community members where they were at various community-led events, such as National Night Out, food distribution centers. Many of the activities are already going on in the community. We tried to piggyback or partner with various either government organizations, civic organizations to, again, meet people where they are. So we put a very heavy emphasis on doing that.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for all the good work.
Sorry, one more thing. I do thank you for the whisper here from Clark. We also worked with Better Block to host the Fairland and Briggs Cheney Placemaking Festival at the BRT station between the Regional Services Center and the Department of Recreation. So it really worked well with both those organizations. Department of Rec was awesome, helping us program that space with Better Block to demonstrate to the community the ways that open spaces and various spaces within the community could be programmed in the future. So, yeah, it was a great success.
That's great. It's great to hear, and thank you for the additional information, and thank you for all the good work. So with that, other questions, comments? If not, I would look for a motion, Commissioners.
I have a quick question before we go to the motion.
Commissioner Dorner.
Just more of a request. I'd like to know a little bit more about how you all are dealing with underground utilities. So one of the recommendations is where feasible to put underground utilities in place. I think it'd be helpful for us in Prince George's to know, how do you encourage that? It's an expensive venture. It can add millions of dollars into projects, but it also adds a really high quality kind of development where it's feasible when you have more kind of urbanized and denser areas. So if we save this for like a later standpoint, that's fine. But I would just like to know, like, how do you balance that? Because we haven't had a really good track record of getting that done. I've had to insist on a few projects that are more dense to do it. And it would be nice to know what lessons learned you've gotten from when you've put that into your master plans.
Yeah, thank you. So that is quite literally the $1 million plus question at times, as you stated. So, and it is one that's a little bit tricky to answer. Ideally, we do like to underground utilities, not just from an aesthetic standpoint, but from a resiliency standpoint, from reliability of our grid. 100-year storms, et cetera, are becoming more intense, more frequent, and from a resiliency standpoint, reliability standpoint, we do try to, as much as possible, get utilities underground. That being said, we do have to consider proportionality in our factoring when we make those recommendations to our planning board as to whether or not to underground utilities. So we do consider size and scale of projects. Ultimately, we do want to, put housing, other uses, developments to move forward that are consistent with our plans, on the ground, and to do so at the highest level quality as possible, and that does include often undergrounding utilities. But we do try to consider that, recommendation in our master plan, that language very seriously, and then have to measure that against the level of development that is proposed. So I'll say, in general, it's not just a guarantee that we're going to recommend undergrounding utilities with every plan. We do consider that as part of the development review process when we move through that. Hopefully that answers your question. It does get a little complicated, so any follow-up on that?
Yeah, I think that helps answer it. It might be more helpful to know later, like where you find out the sort of where feasible clause is, no one's going to do it if it's not required, is sort of our experience. So knowing a little bit about like when it's possible to push back and when we can actually get those things and how we can maybe potentially have that happen would be useful from our county to just kind of learn what you guys have done in terms of making that successful.
So Mr. Dorner, Vice Chair here, yeah, it is very important, from, as Mr. Butler said, from resilience, from sight lines, what we also thought, this is in the Fairlands-Briggs Cheney, it was a community that has not been invested in like many of the others, and the thought of it is we wanted to make it a gateway project, so mostly on the main thoroughfares or where their main project would likely that would be undergrounded, but maybe there'd be some places where they wouldn't be. And also we talked a little bit about partnerships. Maybe that's somewhere where Prince George's County would maybe have a fund if it was really important for certain reasons to have the undergrounded. Maybe there is some fund or some partnership where maybe the county would be able to put some money into the undergrounding. It's very expensive for developers, and you have to know what are the priorities. Are the priorities in that community for housing, and and not allowing the undergrounding will allow for more housing. But so it's a give and take. It's always it's a great question you added. Where we also are always thinking through that. Yeah.
Could I add to that if that's okay? It's Robert Cronenberg. Mm-hmm. This was a big discussion with council, and we've had this with a lot of the master plans that we work on that are more in the central business districts. We don't have this issue. It's somewhat of a given that to do the type of development that's more urban scale and more Main Street, so to speak, we don't have the pushback from the different development community, from the agencies as well. And in Fairland-Briggs Cheney, the area that was really focused on for the undergrounding of utilities was more of a Main Street. And so we felt like that was a little bit of a continuation of the idea of what we deal with in the central business districts. And one way that is helpful is looking at the design guidelines that will follow this. That really focus on the pedestrian circulation, as well as some of the other design elements, whether it's trees, stormwater. And if you get that memorialized in a guideline that other agencies adhere to and adopt, then it's a little bit easier to push the underground of the utilities.
Great point, Robert. I think.
I'd like to add that whenever there's a contest before the commission whether or not the utilities should be underground, and the staff reports recommend that they be underground, and there's pushback from the developer. I always try to side with the staff with regards to that. And I think if there's cohesion of the staff and the commission with regards to undergrounding the lines, regardless of what the developers say with regards to cost, I think it's important that we side with our staff and pushing for it. And so if we are in unison with regards to wanting them to be underground, it's important that we have that cohesion. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Other questions, comments? If not, I want to thank Mr. Butler, thank Mr. Larson for your work on this again. And commissioners, I would look for a motion.
I have a
Move
motion for
approval,
approval.
Mr. Chair.
I second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Geraldo, a second by Vice Chair Harris. Discussion on the motion. Seeing no discussion, Mr. Adams, could you call the roll, please?
Chair Shapiro,
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey,
Aye.
Commissioner Dorner,
Aye.
Commissioner Geraldo,
Aye.
Commissioner Washington,
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris,
Aye.
Commissioner Bartley,
Aye.
Commissioner Hedrick,
Aye.
Commissioner Linden.
Aye.
9-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Thanks again, staff, for the work. Next, we have the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. Mr. Cohen?
Thank you, Chair Shapiro, Vice Chair Harris, members of the Commission. Good morning. For the record, I'm Gavin Cohen, the Secretary Treasurer. This morning, we'll have two brief presentations for you. We'll start off with Chris Lehman from the auditors, and he'll be followed by our Director of Accounting, Abby Rodman. And again, they'll be doing two brief presentations on the fiscal year 23 financial statements and audit. There is no action item for the Commission. This is informational only. So thank you very much for that, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it over to Chris Lehman.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cohen. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. I have a brief presentation I will share here. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. As Mr. Cohen mentioned, I'm Chris Lehman. I was the engagement partner, again, for this year's financial statement audit. My firm, SB & Company, is the independent public accounting firm that's been engaged to audit the June 30, 2023 financial statements of the Commission. In addition, management compiles what's termed an ACFR annual comprehensive financial report. We've also reviewed that complete document through our audit procedures. Just at a high level, here's a summary of the results of the audit. We've issued a clean, or what's termed unmodified, opinion on the financial statements. That's the best opinion we could give under professional standards, and that says that the financial statements are reasonably free of material misstatement. We did not discover any instances of fraud in our audit. We did not note any material weaknesses. However, we did note one improvement related to accounting for construction in progress. We received the full cooperation of management. We did not note any, we did not propose any audit entries to management. So that just speaks to the quality of the record keeping that's maintained for the audit period. As well as there was a new accounting pronouncement that was required to be implemented. And this is similar to the lease standard that went into effect back in FY22. There is a IT-related subscription standard that the Commission has implemented. This here is just a picture of the risk-based audit approach. We spend significant amount of time looking at the internal control structure and assessing whether or not there is an adequate design and operation of those controls. And I've got a couple slides that'll highlight the results of that. But before we get into the specific controls, we also consider the control environment in which the Commission operates in from a transactional and financial statement perspective. There's 5 interrelated components that we look at here. and we've concluded that there is an effective environment for the period under audit. Then getting into the specific key processes, looking at treasury from a bank reconciliation and investment reconciliation perspective. There's certain estimates within the financial statements, management's financial reporting and closing process. And looking at the disbursement cycle, we've concluded that the design and operation of those controls was effective for the period under audit, as well as for payroll, revenue, and information technology as it does relate to the financial activity. And when we just had one recommendation related to fixed asset accounting that has to do with capitalizing construction in progress once those projects are complete, so that the clock starts on depreciation, and depreciation being recorded for those items. So we've discussed that with management. The last few slides, I won't read these to you, but I did hit on some of these at the intro. But if we had difficulties getting through the audit, if we had audit adjustments, I'd be required to bring that to the commission's attention. If we had found any fraud or illegal acts, or if we had any disagreements with management, and there's really nothing negative that I need to bring to your attention through the audit process. And lastly, I did include my contact information, as well as my other partner, that if there are questions outside of audit timing or the timing you get to see me here each year, we make ourselves available to answer any questions or address any issues that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Thank you very much, Mr. Lehman. Do we have questions, Commissioners, for Mr. Lehman before we turn to Ms. Rodman? Thank you for the work, Mr. Lehman, and we have Ms. Rodman.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to pull up my presentation. Okay. I'm Abby Rodman, the Corporate Accounting Director in the Department of Finance. I'm here to present the highlights of our annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. The land use article requires the Commission to publish an annual financial report that is audited by an independent certified public accountant, as well as a report that sets forth the work of the Commission for the year. The annual comprehensive financial report fulfills those requirements in one document. As Chris said, we did receive...
Ms. Rodman, let me notice that just to pull your camera off the screen. It's blocking the slides you're presenting. You see it?
Okay. Is it better?
I think we can still kind of see it, but there's a little... That's it. That needs to go.
Oh, is that better? Okay.
No, that's worse.
Sorry about that.
That's worse. I think that's better. What do you think, folks? Yeah, that's good. You're good to go.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
All right. As Chris said, we did receive an unmodified or clean audit opinion for the fiscal year 2023, and there was no single audit required. Sorry, is this... Can you still see my...
You're moving ahead on the slides. It's working fine.
Okay. All right. This slide is showing that the Commission ended the fiscal year in a strong financial position. This chart shows the Commission's government-wide change in the ending net position of approximately $1.4 billion, which is an increase of $62.4 million from the prior year. This is mainly attributable to an overall increase in revenue from all revenue sources and conservative spending across Commission departments and programs. The governmental activities column includes the park, recreation, and planning activities, and the business type activities column is for the enterprise funds, which includes the Wheaton headquarters. The next slides will break out the Commission's tax-supported operations or governmental activities by their respective funds, which are comprised of 5 separate accounts, each with their own separate tax rate. The first slide I'll talk about is the Montgomery County Administration Fund. The actual change in fund balance was $730 million. The total fund balance ended at $3.1 million, and the unassigned portion of the fund balance is $1.8 million, which is available to balance future budgets. All right, this is the Montgomery County Park account. This, after transfers, the actual change in fund balance was $2.1 million. The total fund balance is $7.8 million, and the unassigned is $3.4 million, which is available to meet and to balance future budgets. This is the Prince George's County Administration Fund. After transfers, the actual change in fund balance is the actual change in fund balance is $19.7 million. Total fund balance, $53.9 million. And the unassigned portion of the fund balance is $50.5 million, which is available to balance future budgets. Prince George's Park account. After transfers, the actual change in fund balance was a negative $41 million. Total fund balance remains at $78.2 million. And the unassigned portion is $69.1 million, which is available to balance future budgets. And the last fund is the Prince George's Recreation Fund. After transfers, the actual change in fund balance was $9.3 million. Total fund balance is $60.9 million. And the unassigned portion of the fund balance is $48.8 million, which is available to balance future budgets. The following slide shows the enterprise fund, which are activities predominantly supported through user fees. The activities use full accrual accounting and are reported similar to commercial accounting, which is used to accurately reflect where there is a return of the full cost of the facility or program. As you can see, we have the Wheaton headquarters broken out. This did have a decrease in net position of $4.4 million. Montgomery County's enterprise funds had a net increase of just over about $2.9 million, and the Prince George's County enterprise fund had a decrease in net position of $14.5 million. Although the overall net position of each of these funds decreased for FY 2023, it was mainly due to the Wheaton headquarters depreciation charges and the transfer of the sports and learning complex to the rec fund. Each did have sufficient net position to be appropriately reserved. And overall, the Commission's FY 2023 audit and financial results reflect a healthy financial result on both the fund and entity-wide level. And the Commission continues to report healthy fund balances in full compliance of the Commission's fund balance policy. And that was it. Anyone has questions?
Yeah, this is the Vice Chair. Thank you both for those reports. It's great that we have a healthy fund balance. Just a question. So your first slide said there was a $1.4 million. Is that in assets or cash?
That would, well, it does entail mostly assets. We have a large asset base. Yeah, we mainly showed the net position slide, not the asset slide.
And so
our total
those are, and so but if you added up the fund balances, is that cash?
No, no, that's not going to equal cash.
Okay.
If I may.
But if you do.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, the majority of a fund balance is a fund balance is the term we use for assets minus liabilities. So cash is a big portion of the asset side of that. But the term fund balance is generally the net of your assets and your liabilities.
Equity?
You could yes. Technically, no, but if you think about it as equity or retained earnings, In the private sector, it's not exactly the equivalent, but you can think of it that way, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason, Vice Chair Harris, is just it's the difference for the basis of accounting. When we talk about fund balance in the government space, we're talking about a modified accrual method of accounting, which is why technically we don't refer to it as equity or retained earnings.
Okay.
But it's if you think about it that way, it does work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Rodman. Commissioners, other questions we have?
Thank you.
No other questions? This is a information item only, correct, Mr. Cohen?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rodman. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Lehman, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, we'll move on the agenda. We have item 4G. Ms. Borden, do we have legislative updates? It's that time of year, so I imagine we do. Folks, can you hear her? We can, but she's in the room.
I just turned it on, so I think I'm good.
Okay.
Deborah Borden, General Counsel for the Commission, for the record. This is just a quick check-in. I don't have a presentation. We're not going through bills. I just want the commissioners to know that the General Assembly session started last week. So we have hit the ground running, Jordan and I. And Jordan will spend the better part of the General Assembly session in Annapolis, walking the hallways and working on bills. If you recall from December and I think a little bit of November, we talked to you in the planning board meetings about several local bills. Those are still pending and we're still working those bills. There will be some statewide bills. This is going to be the year of affordable housing. The governor has made it very clear that that is one of his major legislative objectives for this year. And so has the President of the Senate, and so has the Speaker of the House. So we can be assured that some legislation this year will be passed in the Maryland State Legislature dealing with affordable housing. Now, some of the housing bills are very specific to financing, helping developers and nonprofits with their financing by either tax credits or other financing tools. And while we will be monitoring those, we will not fully engage on those. That's really outside of our wheelhouse. We will monitor them because sometimes those bills get changed, revised to include other matters. So we will make sure that if they do get changed to include matters that would be within our purview, we are on that. But for the most part, we will monitor those types of bills. The other bills that deal with, frankly, there are some bills that will deal with state preemption, that where the state is going to push into some of the things that are normally local. Normally the things that we see in our zoning ordinance. The state is taking a very active approach this year. And really for the first time, we're going to see a major push by the state to do things that we normally see on a local level. So we're going to be very active and engage with the state and with MACO and our other county partners to make sure that those efforts hopefully bear fruit. But we have to make sure that they bear fruit, in terms of the fact that our zoning ordinances are all very different at the county level, not just the two bi-county region that we're dealing with, but, if these provisions are going to be applicable statewide, then they need to work for everybody. So we're going to be working with pretty much everyone to try to make sure that these provisions are actually going to end up being helpful. We're going to make sure that we understand the provisions so that we can understand how we have to adapt, if we do have to adapt, and so that we're ready to implement anything, because we want the same thing. We all want more affordable housing. We all want affordable housing that is safe and that is quality, and that serves our residents. So that's what we're going to be doing this session. There are going to be a lot of housing bills. I just want to prepare you for that. We will do our best to filter them through and to work on the ones that we think really are going to succeed, so that we don't spend time on things that are not going to go anywhere. But we're going to be bringing you a lot of housing bills this time, and in some cases, they will be amendments for you to review. If our recommendation is to you to support with amendments, we will not bring that to you without the amendments, so that you can see them and decide if you would like to support that bill. So that's all I have today. We're a week in, so bills are still dropping, if you can imagine. We are still working on some of the bills that were the local bills from before. We haven't had yet an official committee hearing on any of those bills yet. Once we have updates, we will let you know. And generally speaking, we will, since you only meet as a full commission once a month, we'll be seeing you at the planning boards to update you. So that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Let me just say, I know there'll be questions. Let me just say in advance, I'm really, really pleased with the work that you and Jordan are doing. And Vice Chair Harris and I are involved on a regular basis, just a whole lot of conversations, a whole lot of activity, just to make sure we're out in front of all these activities. So, Commissioner Bartley.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions and an opinion, but the first question I have is, will they define affordable housing and what does it mean, essentially? I think that's always a question that's unanswered. Does it mean low-income housing, or does it mean like middle-of-the-road, middle-class family housing? And then another statement I have is that local control is best. In my position with regards to centralized government that is not attached to communities, making decisions with regards to living and zoning is not in the best interest of communities, and that anytime you can maintain local control to best address the community needs, I think that is in the best interest of all Maryland cities, counties, and local governments. Negating local governments and citizens' abilities to vote and select people to best determine the fate and the course of their environment, I don't think is in the best interest of the state, because our state is so diverse when we look at Western Maryland, Southern Maryland, and the Eastern Shore, and then Baltimore City and northern counties. Thanks.
Thank you. And the specific question you had about how affordable housing is defined, I mean, I think Deborah will have some thoughts on that, but each one of the bills has a definition in it. And it just depends on the bill, whether they're doing, workforce housing or affordable housing, 30%, 60%, 80% of area median income. But Deborah, I don't know if you have any specifics on the bills, the package that the governor's proposed.
Well, not yet. We certainly have the main bill that has been proposed by the governor. That specific one is focused on the 60%. So it's people who are making 60% of your average income level, and it's different depending on where the person is or where the jurisdiction is. So we like to think of that as your teachers, your police officers, people who are making what we would consider to be a good income, and yet still can't afford to buy their first house. And so, but what Chair Shapiro said is true. All of these different bills are going to have a different focus, and they're going to try to define their target differently. And so, that's one of the things we're really going to be focused on is, what are the definitions? Are these definitions overlapping? Is there a way that we can combine some of these? The second issue about local control, that's a problem. I mean, the local governments are very comfortable with their local authority and zoning ordinances and procedures. The state is less comfortable with that because they don't do it very often. And so we have a choice. We can engage the state and try to help to craft these bills so that they will, in the end, be helpful to our residents and to us, because in the end, we have the same goal. And so while I absolutely agree with you that I think local control of these matters is probably better because we have boots on the ground, and these are very property-specific things that happen that we deal with at the planning board every week. So I absolutely agree with you, but I think that we have to make a choice to engage because we owe that to the people that we serve. And so if the decision makers way above my pay grade have made a decision, I think that we need to engage and do the best that we can with the tools that we're given.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Borden. Other questions, commissioners? Thank you. Much
just kind of following up
Commissioner
on,
Dorner. Yeah.
is following up on one of the comments, like Commissioner Bartley brought up, just like how do we measure? To some extent, we have to be careful in the recommendations with the federal guidelines, because that's going to close up funding at state, local, whatever levels you want to do. So I think as Ms. Borden, as you're looking through the bills and they're defining what low income or very low income or measures of AMI might be, let's not forget and make sure we remind any kind of legislation about potential conflicts with other funding avenues, because they can pass whatever laws they want. But if you don't have the capital financing for it set up that can actually get triggered, it doesn't matter. Because a lot of even the local developments, they're going to be sold off and securitized to federal financing. And if you block that legislatively by having different definitions of what low or very low income is, it's pointless. You can pass as much legislation as you want, but it doesn't do anything if you can't get the money to line up with it. So we just need to be careful with what the definitions are. They range from the 60 and the 30% AMI, depending if you're looking at rental or kind of unit-based funding. There's also 50% and 80% AMI that go for different other goals as well in the multifamily space. So we just need to be careful to not run afoul of trying to set this great definition and then it not working at all.
Understood. We are working with the Department of Housing and Community Development at the state level. They do a lot of this work, a lot of this funding, basically, for affordable housing, and they have connections and they work with their counterparts at the federal level. So absolutely, we will be running all of this through them as well as our other county partners to make sure that whatever is passed actually works and actually helps, to get us where we want to be, which is more affordable housing for our residents.
Thank you. Thank you all. Other questions, comments? Seeing none, this was a information item, so there's no action taken. So, Ms. Borden, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have our officers' reports, executive directors' reports. I believe that while these are for information only, I believe that we do have a presentation from our CIO, the quarterly report. Is that correct, Ms. Chang-Smith?
Mr. Chile, are you there to talk about our
I'm
ERP?
here.
Okay, yes.
Here? Yes. Okay. So, good morning, commissioners, Chair and Vice Chair, Mazin Chile, Chief Information Officer for the record. I'm sharing with you my presentation here. It is derived from what I included in the packet, what's included in the packet for you. I just kind of presented this to help step through some of the information in that. And also, during the presentation, if you have any questions or you'd like to take any topic offline, I'll be more than happy to do so. And towards the end, we will, if you have any questions, we can also answer those towards the end. So with that, I'm going to talk about the ERP project, Project Mosaic, as the name of our new ERP project. Talk about the status of the project and next steps on the project. To start, I'm going to give you a brief background of our ERP life here at the Commission. In 2011, the first ERP system was implemented at the Commission. It came from multiple systems into a single ERP solution. Fast forward to 2017, several years into it, the Commission did an ERP upgrade. I was here for that. I was not here for the initial, but I was here with the Commission for the upgrade. And we carried out a successful upgrade, but that was a version upgrade, meaning going from version 9 to version 10. During that period, for whatever it matters, the product was called Lawson. The company by the name Infor purchased Lawson, so it became Infor Lawson for that version that we did in 2017. Going forward in 2022, support for the current ERP version was changed to December of 2030. As a matter of fact, Infor informed us in 2022 that the support for they're no longer selling the current version we're on, which is version 10, and the support will end in 2016, April 2016. Then later on that year, they extended the support to the end of December 2030, which is a good decision to help us, get off of the current version without having to rush through anything. We also did an ERP gap analysis. That was done as it was requested by our chairs, and we completed that by mid-December 2021. And based on that, we began the ERP funding starting fiscal year FY22. Now, in January 2023, which is about a year ago now, where a decision was made based on a presentation that I presented to our chairs, the executive committee then. We basically looked at two options based on that gap analysis and our experience with the ERP. One is to upgrade the current version from Infor Lawson to the newest version from the same application, or replace the entire system by going out to with an open source station, hoping to get the best and most optimal ERP solution for the way we do business for the Commission. So that was the decision made back in January. I'm going to look at the project approach and schedule. You will see some color codes here. On the orange color here, the amber is the responsibilities shared with M-NCPPC, the Commission, our consultant. ITRG for short, it's Input Tech Research Group. It's our consultant that is helping us with the requirement and the RFP development. And then the second code is the dark blue, which is the responsibility of our consultant, and the light blue is our responsibility to own and lead throughout the process. There are three phases to this part of the project. The phase one has to do with strategizing. We have to do requirement gathering, we have to develop the RFP, and we have to put it out on the street and award. So then that first part we do basically strategizing, meaning trying to understand what is it that we have currently and where we want to go with the next system, and try to define our ERP operating model. Try to define we have defined actually our mega processes and look at those currently and where we want those to be in the future, and also develop some framework to how we're going to get there. And phase two of the project is called Elicit, and this has to do with the solution requirement, the vendor landscape, understanding what vendors are there and what they have to offer, developing the RFP document, and use some templates that will help us actually evaluate the responses from vendors, and then finally, as an evaluation scorecard that will help us place the responses from our vendors and evaluate them correctly and fairly. The last phase of that is phase 3, would be selecting the actual vendor, and that will start off by, excuse me, putting the RFP out on the street through procurement, then come up, based on the responses, come up with a short list and make, get some recommendations, get some demonstrations done from the responses, then do a vendor selection through an evaluation committee and negotiate an award. And this whole process we're talking about, if you look at the screen here, is going to go well into the end of this year, into multiple phases. There's some key milestones here on the screen. If you see, there is, for example, there's a procurement end of year rush, right? So we know between March and June, things get a little hectic for procurement. So we have to factor in some time as we work on the requirements and other parts of the RFP during that period. And then, you see in other parts that the responsibilities for the procurement is, significant. Responsibilities for the PMO, our project team, is also significant. All the mega process owners, which is mostly finance and HR in the corporate function and the by-county function, is very significant. A lot of it will happen behind the scenes without having to be disruptive to the departments. However, input from the departments is also included as also very significant and important to the project's success. So the phase 1 of the project, which we're in now, we have, and we call strategize. In that was launched back on January 3rd. The launch included, and you see some more details on that. And on January 5th, we also did the ERP education and awareness, which is something that was extremely useful, and it had a good turnout. I'll get more details on that in a couple of slides. And now in February, between February and March, we will do the work sessions that will actually help us gather requirements. And I say us and our consultant will gather requirements through those cross-functional teams that have been developed. Those work sessions, again, will engage all the key stakeholders across the commission to make sure that we capture all the requirements that matter to our business today and that we want to work in the future. Phase 2 of the project is the elicit, where we do the solution requirements, vendor landscape understanding, develop the RFP, part of the content for that, for the requirements, develop a response template, and also come up with an evaluation scorecard. The timeline is still to be determined. That's going to be based on how phase 1 goes. In phase 3, time is also to be determined, but in that, that's the selection process, where we'll field the RFP, put it on the street, come up with short list, and do vendor demonstrations, and go through the selection negotiations and the final award of the project. We have, as part of the communication plan, and we do have an extensive one, but I wanted to point out that we have built a project SharePoint site for the project to help. And I shared the link in the packet as well. And so he's here on the screen. And the advantage of that gives us and gives all our stakeholders across the commission a one-stop shop to get information and status updates and understanding on where we're at with the project. It would have things like, the project charter, all types of documents that have been developed and shared throughout the process. It would have a blog with important information and other useful communications on there. And we'll also have all the recorded meetings and discussions that are relevant to the entire user group. It will also have project team information. It will have calendars, times and dates. It will have, again, it will become a one-stop shop to learn about what's happening with the project. Because oftentimes people will hear about dates and discussions and not necessarily remember. This will become a resource, especially for those who are engaged with the projects, or those who are very interested in the project status. Also, so on January 3rd, like I mentioned, which is a couple weeks ago, we actually launched the requirement gathering phase of the project. That was really a remarkable stakeholder showing. The level of engagement, the number of attendees was amazing. There were 131 people in the meeting. as it peaked. Then the lowest at any given time, which was a 2-hour meeting, was 103. That just goes to show the level of enthusiasm and engagement across the commission. Although we invited 109 people, but it seems like, the invitations were shared with others, which is fine. And that kind of was helpful to get the message out that we're about to start the requirements. Some of the questions, there weren't too many questions, in my opinion. That's kind of reflects on the quality of the presentation, but there were 8 questions. And other things were, other discussions on the chat in that during that meeting. But the 8 questions were answered. And they were all good questions, and they responded to immediately after the meeting to make sure that people get what they're hoping for from that. The meeting invited and was required for all stakeholders. And again, stakeholders, it's a very large number. It's well over 100 people. The session was also recorded and made available for stakeholders or anyone who wants to look at it on our public SharePoint site that I just talked about. The other meeting that happened was a couple of days later on Friday the 5th. That was the education and awareness of ERP 101. And again, that was also very remarkable in that we had, we had a peak of 106, folks attending and actually, listening and asking questions and engaging in the chat. We invited 109, but the actual showing was a lot more. That means, slides, invitations were shared. And I was very pleased with that because now, again, that kind of established a very good baseline of understanding what the ERP is, what types of technology that are out there, how the world has changed. Because if you've known the ERP that we're currently on, the future ERP is not going to be the same. Knowing what options are out there, it was very helpful for folks to understand, so they can ask the right questions, especially for those who are engaged in the requirement gathering. There were 16 questions asked. So again, that's double from the previous day. And were all also responded to immediately after. Some were answered, immediately in the meeting, and some were answered afterwards. It was made optional to stakeholders, but again, the showing just shows the level of enthusiasm and desire to learn and be part of a successful project for the commission. The session was recorded and shared also with all stakeholders. Now, let's talk about next steps, because that's really the next big thing. So we have the strategy, operating model, mega process framework, and the development and alignment. This is really where we're going to get ourselves set up to take on the requirement gathering and the quality of the requirements that we're going to develop, and what's going to go into RFP. It's going to reflect on the quality of product that we're going to get at the end. That's why a lot of emphasis has been going into this. So we have interviews set up between January 4th, which some already have taken place, through January 31st, in a couple more weeks. The purpose is to really understand what the ERP project vision and goals and priorities for the commission, understanding, what are the guiding principles, what are the expectations are, understand some of the success factors as understood by those who are being interviewed, what some of the challenges that we foresee, and and understand the current processes and operations that we currently do. Every organization is unique, so our consultant who's helping us with those requirements want to understand how we operate, and the only way they can get that is by talking to the folks who run the business. The alignment working session is scheduled for the week of February 19th. The purpose of that, again, is to establish an alignment between strategic goals and tactical goals. So strategic goals are like broad, long-term goals. Tactical goals are short-term, more specific goals. Trying to understand both and develop an operating model, the mega process framework. Mega process meaning the highest level processes for finance, for procurement, for HR, for hiring, and so on. Then we'll have a report to review and comment on, finalize the strategy on how we're going to do the requirement gathering. And with that, the requirement gathering will begin between March 4th through March 16th through, again, discussions with identified stakeholders that will work together from different departments in what we call cross-functional teams. Those are going to be really the most important part of this phase, where requirements are shared, discussed, and understood, and then developed into RFP language. Again, the launch for that is March 18th, and then we're gonna define the business and systems requirements, functional, technical implementation. So there are several cross-functional groups that have been identified, and from across the commission, and those interviews will happen then. And I'll be reporting back to you in a couple of months on this, in my next quarterly report. I was gonna get final thoughts on this project. This project has been, we've been really busy working on it for the last couple of months. Well, for more than that, if we're talking about all the preparation for the budgeting and the estimations and all that. But I just want to share some final thoughts on this. Our goal, of course, like any other project, is to complete the projects within budget and on time. That's a given. But the real success of this project lies in the Commission's ability to introduce process improvements that will transform the way we work. Now, by adopting constructive mindset, and I'm beginning to see a lot of that from the teams and the stakeholders that we've been meeting with, with that we can confidently exceed our goals and even achieve the desired outcomes and then some. I think we started very strong, and I feel a very strong and healthy momentum. And I think most of that comes from the fact that we have developed a very strong communications plan. And we also have engaged an experienced consultant to make sure that nothing is missed, that we do the requirement gathering, engage all the right folks early on, so nothing, so we can develop a very good product towards the end. I think that's my last slide, and if any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chile. Incredibly complex project, and sounds like you are on top of it. Questions from commissioners?
I had one question. Very comprehensive presentation on very difficult project. So you talked about cross-functional teams. Like, could you explain, like, who are on those is it cross-functional team from CAS and members of the Parks and Planning on each side? Could you tell me about how those were developed, or how those are being developed? So make sure you have.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah, yes, sir. Okay, so the cross-functional teams will have, of course, the key players from the corporate function, from the county finance and HR. And by the way, each mega process, and the mega process, again, it's a high level. Let's say I'm going to take procurement as an example, because it's very relevant to a lot of people. So procurement is the function itself. The mega process owner of that will be in finance. However, it will have cross-functional team members from other departments across the commission, Parks and Rec, Planning, from both sides of the commission, even members from, of course, from HR and from other groups, from the CIO's office possibly. So that cross-functional team has representation from the way we do business from an end user standpoint, like purchasing. When I want to purchase something, my screens and the view that I have is different from the corporate function. So for the first time, really, we're considering the user experience and the user take on how things are done and what the business process looks like for the end users, taking that into consideration as part of our cross-functional team representation.
Including already have gotten comments from those people from those different departments as you're starting to start the next phase, correct?
Yes, sir. And as a matter of fact, let me just add, the selection process was really complex in that we not only we talked to the end users who we felt that were strong candidates to be part of the cross-functional teams, but we also spoke to their managers, and we went all the way up to the department heads just a couple of weeks ago to make sure the department heads are aware of the process and aware of the commitment that we're asking some of those folks to do for a few days with us on those cross-functional teams. It's time that people have other responsibilities to take care of, but this time is really crucial to our ability to capture what's happening in the department, what has happened, what's happening, how they want that change to come about. So we're going to hear it firsthand from them. So we've kind of talked to all levels to ensure their engagement for those 3 or 4 days in some cases.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Other questions? I don't see any. Thank you for the thorough report, Mr. Chalet. We'll hear from you quarterly on this. And Yeah, thank you. Hey, one quick question. The RFP development is 8 months? We have time because the support for in-force support is not till 2026. I'm trying to understand why the RFP development would be that long.
Interesting question, and it's this is the question that keeps coming up. Actually, now there are a number of things. Each step of the process requires, you capture information, you ask people to review, get feedback, and make adjustments. That process itself involves three groups: the vendor, the consultant is helping us, the PMO project team in my office, and the user group, a cross-functional team. So those iterations, those review processes could take time. One of the biggest challenges I've seen, and we have committed to a 3-day turnaround. I have committed my team to that. I got the consultant to also commit to that. And in our conversations with the cross-functional teams, we will make sure that commitment carries through, because we can't allow ourselves to sit on reviews or feedback for weeks, because that will throw us off. Now, knowing that there may be some extenuating circumstances where things will go a little bit outside of that schedule, like the procurement rush that happens every year, right? Year-end closing, like in finance, some blackout days that we have identified. All that kind of adds to the process. But in a typical RFP of this magnitude, when you put, and by the way, I'm saying everything that the procurement lead on this has said. So I'm definitely speaking from an educated standpoint. When you put out an RFP on the street, oftentimes you put it out for 6 weeks for something like this. It happens a lot where some vendors will ask for an extension, and you almost always honor that extension because you want to make sure you get the best responses from every qualified vendor. And so these things kind of add time here and there. There may be questions somewhere down the line where questions may take longer to respond to from us or from the vendor. So again, that's all factors into the extended, and we built all that in to make sure that we're not overcommitting or undercommitting, but we're trying to be just right with that, and that's why you see that duration.
Okay.
And of course, at the end, there's that legal review and the negotiations. It's very intense.
Great.
Chair Shapiro,
that's helpful.
if I could just add,
Yeah.
just with project management, the more time you take to thoroughly plan the project, you get a better outcome. And so we wanted to make sure that we had the input from the departments, who are the end users, as well as from CAS. And we wanted to make sure it was thorough so that what we're asking for is exactly what we want to get. I always use the analogy with Maz, and he hates this, about a pink pony. If your child says, hey, I want a pink pony, do you get them a stuffed animal pink pony, or is it a real pony that's painted pink? And depending on what the anticipation is, what you come up with, the reaction will be very different. So we want to make sure, especially with something so technical and complex, that we are delivering what our end users, the departments, are looking for and what they're thinking about. And so you have to be very specific. And the old saying, garbage in, garbage out, we don't want garbage in, so we're taking the time to do that. Also, as Mazen said, the end of July or the end of June is the end of the fiscal year. So, procurement is really busy, and they will not be able to put that RFP out till afterwards. So that's why we extended it to end of August, early September, so that they will have time to do a thorough job on putting out that RFP and soliciting properly. So that's why the
Great.
thoroughness.
Appreciate that. Thanks to both of you. All right, Mr. Chalet, if there's no other questions, thank you for the presentation. I will turn back to you, Ms. Chang-Smith. Anything else for the Executive Director's reports?
No, Chair, there for information only. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cohen, nothing from you. And Ms. Borden, anything else from the General Counsel? Nothing else. All right, so Commissioners, we're going to go into closed session. I will look for a motion, but let me read the language into this. Pursuant to the Maryland General Provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B9 and 15, a closed session is proposed to consider matters related to collective bargaining negotiations with municipal and county government employees organization to preserve the commission's negotiating position and to discuss cybersecurity matters that pose a risk to security assessments or deployments related to information resources technology, network security information, and deployments or implementation of security personnel, critical infrastructure, or security devices in order to protect public safety. So with that, I would look for a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Giraldo. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a second by Commissioner Bailey. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Adams, no discussion. Mr. Adams, if you could call the roll, please.
Chair Shapiro?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Bailey?
Aye.
Commissioner Dorner?
Vote aye.
Commissioner Giraldo?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Washington?
Aye.
Vice Chair Harris?
Aye.
Commissioner Bartley?
Aye.
Commissioner Hedrick?
Aye.
Commissioner Linden?
Aye.
9-0, thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go into closed session. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a bio break, so figure we'll start up in closed session. It's 11:30 now. Start up in closed session at 11:40. We will come back into open session after closed session, though there's no more business before us, but just to formally close the meeting. So we'll see you on closed session in 10 minutes at 11:40.